Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Rashan T. Borhat, the Burger Popper, and I'm joined by a good friend of mine, good longtime friend of mine, just to discuss some off-season topics regarding Navy football and the NFL draft. Since we are in the draft cycle, I mean it is mid March, and the NFL draft is approaching. I forget when exactly the NFL draft is because I just kind of clock out when college football season ends. I'm not much of an NFL guy and I'm even much less of a draft process guy. But Navy has a couple of legitimate pro prospects, and they have very exciting profiles. Honestly, I think that they could definitely catch on to some teams, if not even be potential late round draft picks. So, Nathan, how's everything going? Thanks for joining. Honestly, for just another great chat.
Yeah, pleasure's mine, Omar, and I'm doing well, man. Obviously, we were talking before we got on. Live in Wisconsin, so we've gotten hit pretty hard with snow, but hanging in there. So got my driveway all cleared, so we're good to go.
Yeah, that is a plus. Yeah, for whenever we got hit with our snowstorm out in Oklahoma, I did not clear the driveway. I mean, and kind of paid for it. Was safe, but definitely some lessons learned there. So nothing as bad as Wisconsin though.
Yeah.
So just to begin this discussion, so honestly, with the probably two of the most fascinating stories in the draft process right now are Landon Robinson and Eli Heidenreich and their particular standing in the draft process. I know they're two very fascinating prospects. They both played in the East West Shrine Bowl, and they were the first midshipmen to play in that All Star game since 2021 when Diego Fago played in that game, as the East West Shrine Bowl has shifted to more of kind of a Senior Bowl type of approach in the prospects that they get, where they used to have a service academy guy, a guy from both Army and Navy, and most times Air Force, every single year from 2001 all the way up to 2019. That approach has kind of changed, where they've kind of given that spot to guys with more realistic pro prospects. So Heidenreich and Robinson getting a spot in the East West Shrine Bowl is a huge deal, and they've definitely caught some attention. I know that there was a sort of viral picture with Landon Robinson with Aaron Donald and also Eli Heidenreich also appeared in the combine, and I think he ran a sub 4.540, which is an impressive speed for any guy at the service academy. So I don't have official 40 times, but the thought of a service academy guy, especially a slot back, running a sub 4.540 is really awesome. It's really great to see. So Nathan, what are your thoughts on their pro prospects and in their just the general draft process with these two gentlemen?
Um, I think both these guys as prospects. I think, in my opinion, I think they both are legitimate players. Especially Landon Robinson. I mean, a lot of people throw out the comparison of Aaron Donald and which excites me because my favorite NFL team is the LA Rams. But you watch a guy like Landon play. I mean, he's got that same size. I mean, he's just a freak athlete. I mean, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, Pat Forty had his like freaks list, and Landon was like number 13 on that list. I mean, his bench press, his 40. I mean, all of his metrics are just insane. I mean, and for a lot of people want to rip on his size, but to me, like him being not ultra tall, he uses as a great advantage. I mean, just like an Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald was not the biggest guy, but size isn't always everything. I mean, sometimes when you're smaller, that can be a greater advantage because you have a better chance of getting lower than a taller guy on the line. So, and Eli, I mean, I know he was, from what I know, top 10, I think, in the combine for his position for the 40. And I just watched him play the last handful of years. I mean, just an electric athlete. And I think he has a chance to be a really dynamic player in the league. I mean, I think they're both worthy of being drafted. I mean, whether or not both will, or at least one will, we'll see in April. But I think they're both very legitimate prospects and two guys that obviously were probably very underrated coming out of high school, and they proved it at the academy. So,
Yeah, I think they're both cases of the benefit of going to service academy for a player that has the academic acumen and who could really fit in the system, who's overlooked by a lot of programs. Where these like where you can develop into becoming a great player in the system. You can play against excellent competition in the American Conference, which we'll talk about later on. And speaking of the American Conference competition, and you could have a chance at the pros, even though that's not the end goal for anyone that signs on National Signing Day to play for Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine, you name it. That's not the end goal. End goal is, of course, like to serve the country, get a degree, and be useful. I mean, useful isn't a good word, but to serve the country in the best way possible through through being through the military service and afterwards as a civilian. But I digress. Like these guys are just great for. I mean, they're just great. I guess stories and case studies for recruitment, for the academies, honestly, for football wise, in this portal era where year after year, like your spot could be taken up by someone that's going to make more money than you, and you'd be bought out. I mean, this is just great for academy football in general. I will say though, with Landon Robinson, uh, I do think that he has very impressive, an impressive physical profile, impressive, I guess, physical attributes for a defensive tackle in the NFL, preferably in a 4-3 scheme. What I would love to see though is there is some historical precedent to guys similar like him playing at fullback in the league. And I think more teams are starting to adapt fullbacks into their schemes, more than a few, of course. And there's some fullback spots opening up. I know the Vikings and CJ Ham. CJ Ham's contract expired. Instead of re-upping, he chose to retire. The Vikings, CJ Ham. That's a spot at fullback there. And there's precedent for a guy like Landon Robinson. I think of Roosevelt Nix, the fullback for a few years for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the mid to late 2010s, who was the MAC Defensive Player of the Year in, I forget whatever year it was, ends up not even playing on the defensive line in the NFL, plays fullback, ends up making a Pro Bowl as an alternate, but this was back when it was still a tackle football game and you had good participation in the Pro Bowl, and ends up having just a very nice NFL career. So that's a comparison I have for Landon Robinson, and then additionally, Patrick Ricard is another guy that I would compare Landon Robinson to, a guy that has big size and is pretty nimble for his size. So I'd be more interested to see Roosevelt Nix in a fullback position. And then as for Eli Heidenreich, Eli Heidenreich has such great versatility that I would like to see him be a kick returner or a punt returner, and I think he will get that shot as a kick and punt returner in in the preseason at least, particularly with as a kick returner because you know that he can navigate those tight running lanes with kick returns. He can navigate those fairly well, and my assessment, I think, of what's needed to be a good kick returner now with the new kick return is you need a guy that is agile and can kind of fit in those lanes. It's a good between the tackles runner slash a guy that can run well in. I'm sorry, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. It's been a while since I was a scout team running back, but that can run in the 7 and the 6 holes off the tackle through the tight end. And to me, that's Heidenreich. So that's my assessment of them. Even though Heidenreich has great natural receiving ability too, I have to add, I've said it plenty of times. He's the best natural receiver that Navy's had since Phil McConkey in the late '70s, who went on to fame as a giant slot receiver and punt returner.
Yeah, it's. I was gonna say it's interesting that you brought up Landon Robinson about the full, for the fullback position. I was reading something on Navy's pro day. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and they actually, I think, the scouts were testing him out doing fullback drills. So sounds like that could be a very good possibility. And I agree with you. I think that'd be fun to watch, man, because that dude I mean, he's showed it over the last couple of years. I mean, I think everybody remembers the Army Navy game from not this last season, the season before when he's running the ball back. So
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think for me, it just adds added interest to the preseason in general because last year Army had Lucas Scott play fullback for the Ravens in the preseason, and for me, like I don't really watch preseason football, but that was a storyline that I was interested in. I remember seeing the All 22s on social media, and I was watching those intently, and he ended up sticking around on the practice squad. Same thing with Jimmy Charlo. Jimmy Charlo went semi-viral on Twitter slash X for a tackle he made against the Giants in the preseason, and I remember the caption was like "free gymnastics lesson" with a kick return, and he just flipped the guy over, and he also got prime camera time on Hard Knocks. So I'm just excited because even if these guys don't make the 53-man roster, the fact that they're going to do something that so many players dream of, and that's actually just putting on an NFL uniform and having a shot in the preseason in general. Like so many players don't reach that pinnacle, and the fact that they're doing it, and the fact that they are representing the service academies well, and potentially fighting for a roster spot, and if not, they gave it their best shot, and they'll be serving the country. It's very admirable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it just shows right now the level of athlete that is at all the academies. I mean, the last handful of years, I mean, Army's had a lot of solid guys that are still playing the league. I mean, you got guys like Cole Christensen. I think Andre Carter's still around. I mean, a couple others I can't remember. And, Ray Lane for Navy last year. I mean, a lot of people raved about him on special teams for the Jaguars. So, I mean, there's some good names out there. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I almost forgot about Ray Lane. I don't know. I can't believe I forgot about Ray Lane. But yeah, like he was on a playoff team no less, and a very great contributor on that team. And even then too, like that's not to forget Trey Taylor, who even though he didn't have a lengthy career in the NFL, he won the Thorpe Award for the best defensive back in the country at the Air Force Academy. I think I think that is a greater achievement than even making an NFL roster in general, just through the sheer rarity of having a Service Academy guy win a position award, a national position award. So, I mean, like you said, just a great level of Service Academy football being played. And I think it's just only going to continue to grow and increase as they set themselves apart in the NIL era, especially with high school recruiting on the decline, really. I think I remember talking to Bobby, my good friend Bobby of the TNT College Football Podcast, and I think he said that UConn signed just 12 players on National Signing Day, which is almost unheard of, but that's the landscape that we live in FBS right now. So it's a trickle down. So if you want to play Division I ball, in the case of Navy, if you want to play against Notre Dame every single year, it doesn't sound like a bad deal for a lot of high schoolers to play football for the Naval Academy if it means just giving back time to the country. So
yeah. No, I agree. I think any of the three academies, I mean, you have a chance at a top tier world class education. If you don't have a shot at the pros to, go to the NFL, hey, you still have a guaranteed job right when you're done graduating. And it's not a bad deal. And it's interesting just watching even the high school stuff. I mean, I was listening to Brian Newberry. He had a spring football press conference today, and he was talking about just their prospects they have right now. And, they have the NAPS program for, the freshmen that aren't able to go to Annapolis right away. And they have their, freshman teams and stuff. And those guys are killing it, I guess. And the last 2 years have gone undefeated, and they're just really excited about the prospects they have coming, and they're just getting a higher caliber of high school recruit. And it sounds like, for all the academies, which is exciting. I think as much as everybody was worried about, how would this new era affect the academies, I think it's shown it's been a good advantage. I mean, they still can develop, and they're getting a higher caliber of athlete than they probably ever have in a long time. So
I think you put it well. I think you put it well. I didn't factor in the prep schools because prep schools are notable for being able to develop players. And I hate using this term, but essentially it works as a red shirt for these players, but they're playing against actual competition, whether it be I think community colleges or JV squads for smaller schools. But either way, it's competition, it's live reps, it's film, so it's just a chance to play football, and it works
yep,
there. It works to the academy's advantage having the prep schools. So just a great time nonetheless. I mean, people thought that NIL would be the end of the academies, but they're thriving in their own way. I mean, they're adapting and
yep,
overcoming, and it's just great to see. So,
yeah,
speaking of adapting, Navy adapted over a decade ago and joined the American, and where they're thriving now. And so they released their 20 or the American released their 2026 conference slate, and it's particularly interesting all around. I know both Army and Navy have weeknight games in the conference, which is always a delight. Uh, and especially Army's weeknight game is on a Friday night in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Skelly Stadium should be rocking. I am hoping to attend that one. Very excited for it. But with Navy's schedule, Nathan, just right off the bat, is there anything particular that catches your eye with Navy's schedule?
um, I would say the thing that catches my eye is playing UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, the Roadrunners for the first time. I'm excited about that. I mean, since they've joined the league, we haven't played them yet, but and also non-conference week 1 we got Townsend, which I know we've played them before. It's been quite a few years, but I think that's kind of excited about that too. I mean, I know Townsend's East Coast. I think East Coast school, so good regional non-conference matchup, and also excited about the Notre Dame game. As much as I get frustrated sometimes watching those games because last couple of years have been kind of brutal with the score, but it's still, a lot of history of that game, but excited to see the Foxborough, Massachusetts matchup at Gillette Stadium and see how that turns out. So
I agree. I think for me, the most interesting thing for me is, like I said, the weeknight game. I love the weeknight games and the exposure it gives to the service academies and the American in general. Friday night against UAB, it's a chance for Navy to get a win on in a standalone game, essentially. Maybe not standalone because Fox does their Friday night thing, but against limited competition. I know Army's game against Temple on a Thursday night pitted against the NFL, drew over 600,000 viewers. I think the exact number was 686,000 viewers. I mean, same thing. Like Navy has a chance to crack, potentially exceed that, and maybe even crack like maybe not a million. I think a million might be a stretch, but high like maybe like 800,000, 700, 800,000 viewers for a Friday night game against UAB because Navy, of course, is a national brand. There's that fascination, and they'll be early on in the season too. Where I think Navy goes into that game with a 2-0 record, really. So I think there is that fascination post Blake Horvath, post Teska, post Heidenreich, post honestly, Robinson, all those guys. There's that fascination with like, can Navy keep it going? Can they actually win the American this year? So that should contribute to the viewership. Where comparatively, I don't think Army really had that much momentum for their game against Temple in 2024 for the viewership. So viewership should be very good for that one. Like you said, I love seeing Navy Notre Dame, especially at a new NFL stadium in Foxborough. Should be interesting. Special note there. This is Notre Dame's first game at Foxborough since 1975 when they opened the year against Boston College at Foxborough, and that game was broadcast on Monday night on ABC. So that's a fun little throwback there with that one. Hopefully Navy comes out on top on that one because that's one of my favorite rivalries. I will say what interests me the most though, aside from the weeknight game, is the last 2 game stretch in November with Memphis and Charlotte. And I think the American had something good with Memphis and Navy on Black Friday, but the fact that Navy's hosting, not Black Friday, excuse me, on Thanksgiving, but the fact that Memphis or Navy is hosting Memphis this year, I can see why they placed on the second to last week of the season, which brings up Charlotte. Charlotte fits as a good regional rival. The 49ers, of course, have hit some rough times, but I would not mind seeing that game be a continued fixture on Thanksgiving weekend, potentially getting some Black Friday time just with how close those schools are, and Navy really not having any regional rivals in the American aside from East Carolina and Temple. Having Charlotte there on Thanksgiving weekend, maybe a Charlotte East Carolina rotation. I think that would be great for Navy, honestly, if we can get that going on Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know if that game has the potential to be flexed for Black Friday, but I would love for it to be on Black Friday, for that to be a Black Friday tradition if it's like if I guess like Navy's on the road on Thanksgiving. So that's just my thoughts on the schedule.
yeah, yeah. No, overall, I think I like the schedule. I mean, obviously we got the traditional matchups with Air Force and obviously the Army Navy game at the end of the season. So, but the American obviously last year that was a really tough league, and I think it'll be tough again this year, and especially with a lot of the new coaches coming in. I think there's some really even though there were some good coaches that got lost, I think there's a lot of good new blood coming in with guys like Charles Huff at Memphis. You got Hartline at USF and some really good coaching prospects I think could do some real damage in that league. So
Yeah, and I think the league's wide open. Like you mentioned Memphis and you mentioned USF. Memphis is on the schedule, but Navy notably avoids USF and they avoid Tulane this year. So could be the year for the midshipmen to have a strong record. I just don't know. I just I just don't know anything about what the Americans going to look like for the transfer portal. Really, like how that's
Yeah.
all going to shake out. Because this would be the year for Navy to make a run, but at the same time, they lost their most productive offense. I mean, since before the pandemic, like their
Yeah.
most productive pieces. So it is tough. The schedule's there, but I do think that there will be some growing pains. But the schedule's there for them to go to just grow through those early on. And I think their first test, honestly, will be UTSA on the road. UTSA looks very strong this year. I think they have the most fraternities out of any program in the American. Honestly, I'd have to check, but McCown's coming back. I think they're starting running back as well that came on as of late is also coming back. So I think that's the first test as well. But I mean, it's a very manageable schedule that midshipmen have to make a run at the American this year.
Yeah. I I've been kind of thinking about that lately, like how good I think Navy could be this year. And I don't know if will they be as good as they've been the last couple of years. I mean, time will tell, but thing I like is Braxton Woodson's back, who has played and has proven that he can be a solid player for us. And I know we still got a good chunk of I want to say most of the offensive line's coming back, and I think even a good chunk of even defensive guys from last year. So obviously we're losing some key guys like Landon, Eli, Tesca, some really good players, but I think this team's still got a chance to be competitive and make a solid run and even just get into a good bowl game, hopefully. So
Yeah, exactly. The military bowl seems to be still on the table because the midshipmen have not played in that one in almost a decade. I mean, so this might be the year that they settle for staying home, but that's an ACC opponent there, so
I
that's still a good bowl
I
game.
I thought we were going to get it last year, and then we ended up in
Yep.
the Liberty Bowl again, which that was which great iconic bowl game, but
Yeah, exactly. You can't go wrong there. You can't go wrong with a lot of the Americans bowl slots, but
no.
see what it looks like come May, honestly, where I mean a lot of these bowls are dropping out. It's honestly kind of sad, but we'll see how it looks. I mean, but as it stands now, the American has some great bowl games, and Navy looks primed to attend just another great game and have just another signature win under their belt in the postseason.
How many how many bowl games have dropped out right now? Because I heard the Motor or not the Motor City Bowl, but the one that I forget the name of it now though.
Detroit.
The one in Detroit.
Yeah, so right now it's three. You have the Bahamas, LA, and then the Game Above Sports Bowl, which is the Detroit Bowl. So it's at
Okay.
three right now. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more just with the general uncertainty. I know, so this is purely speculation and just like me predicting, but
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if the Holiday Bowl drops out because I know that they were trying to take Saudi Arabian money to move that game from San Diego, which indicates that that game might have been in some bad financial straits because that they just for 2 years they just didn't have a bowl game. 2020 and 2021 they just didn't have a bowl game because of
Yeah.
COVID, of course. And I think it really hurt that bowl game's wallet. So like that they were to consider something like that, moving the game to Riyadh. So that's just my prediction. I do think there will be more. Do I want there to be more? Absolutely not. But um, it's just the way things are nowadays, sadly.
Yeah. No, that'd be wild, man. I mean, especially the Holiday Bowl is just one of those iconic bowl games that's been around for a long time and a lot of history to it. That would be wild, but we live in a new era of college football now, so and obviously the playoff is the predominant thing, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the bowl season and if I know there's been talks too of maybe making those like a regular season matchup type thing, or I don't know, but there's been a lot of talks of different stuff. I know, but we'll see.
We will. But I guess is there anything else that you want to address or just discuss before we sign off, Nathan?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. How do you are you surprised about Mike Vitti leaving Army to take the Miami job, being a tight ends coach? Wouldn't mind your thoughts on that.
I guess I am surprised, but when a power four role comes calling when there's money involved, I think especially with the body of work with what Coach Beatty has done at the academy, I don't think that man owes West Point any more than he's already given. I mean,
Yeah,
former player, uh, one of the original members of Coach Monken's staff all the way back in 2014. So that's 12 years on staff. He's been through the lows at first and the highs, and then the kind of small valleys that the program experienced. So I am surprised, but I think that a role like that kind of primes him just to continue climbing the coaching ladder
yep,
and getting his own head coaching job. Even though I would have thought that he would have been the heir apparent to Coach Monken, to be honest with you, just with how long he's been on staff. But I've heard things, and I'm not in the stature, or I guess I don't have the proper, I guess, verification really to say things that I've heard as gospel or as like close to true. So,
yep.
but I think that's my take on it. My take on it is he's pretty much, I think he reached the peak essentially as a coach on Monken's staff, on Coach Monken's staff, and you know being a head coach or being a position coach for the national runner up, like that's nothing to sneeze at. That is a career building move there. So
Yeah. No, like I said, I was when I heard the news, I think a week or two, however long it's been now, a couple weeks now, I think. I was surprised, but like you said, Power Four opportunity. I mean, great financial opportunity, I'm sure, for him. And who knows? I mean, maybe he gets, this is another opportunity for him to grow as a coach, and could lead to other opportunities. And I'm kind of curious to see if maybe when Monken hangs it up, if he's going to still get the call to come back home to West Point and be the head coach down the line.
yes, I will say the turnover at both Army and Navy staffs has been kind of intriguing this offseason. It's been a underlying storyline, and it's interesting to see how both programs will recover. Because I know Navy lost their defensive coordinator. I think both Army and Navy lost their defensive coordinators, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I'll say we lost PJ Volker. I know he went to Baltimore to join the Jesse Minter staff with the Ravens, and then I know I think RB Green, his name is. He was like a defensive backs coach. He actually took a high school job, I guess, in Maryland at a really top end high school program out there. So I know we lost him, and I know there was rumors of Drew Cronick, the offensive coordinator, being in the running for a couple of head coaching jobs at some Group of Five schools, but he decided to stay. So it does stink losing these guys, but at the same time, it's great. It shows the quality of coaching that's at the academies, and also, I got to say this. I mean, it's also cool to see how long a lot of these guys have stayed. I mean, it shows that the academies are good jobs and guys love working at them. It seems like, I mean, people will leave, but it's not like some of these other jobs where it seems like guys are leaving every year, a couple of years. I mean, they get a lot of longevity out of the staffs they have. So,
Yeah, exactly. I think the tenures are very impressive, and it's indicative, I think, of the culture that exists at both academies. Excuse me. So I think it's just great. But again, like these are just career changing opportunities that these coordinators, these position coaches are receiving. Like you said, with Coach Volker being on an NFL staff like that, it doesn't get better than that in terms of an upgrade from coaching at the Naval Academy or at West Point to coaching on an NFL staff. Like, I mean, that's the stuff that dreams are made of. And with how close that the college, actually, maybe not in the Naval Academy. So I was gonna say just about how close the college games are coming to the pro game, but that's a moot point at Navy and Army. But
yeah.
still, like it just like you said, it just another thing that speaks to the level of football at the academies. So we'll see how both schools just move on with these changes, but it will be interesting to see. Is there anything else that you wanted to address or discuss before we sign off?
I feel like I got to bring up, you know, obviously we had sad news a week ago about Lou Holtz passing away, college football legend and a guy growing up that I loved watching on College Football Final. I think we all of us college football fans can remember the days of him and Mark May duking it out on College Football Final on ESPN. So
Yeah, pretty sad news, honestly. I mean, I think too something that comes to mind is the respect that he had for the academies. That's something that I saw a couple people bring up that he truly revered the Navy Notre Dame series. I mean, he might have critiqued the Naval Academy's offense, called it a high school offense, but I know he didn't mean that in malice. I think I read
Yeah.
that in A Civil War in the book by John Feinstein, the late great John Feinstein. I think that's where that remark was, where he said that it was like a high school offense. But I know he didn't mean that out of malice. I know that he had the utmost respect for the service academies. So it is sad, and it's kind of interesting just seeing just the old guard kind of pass away
Yeah.
for just all these great coaches. But man, um, again, what a legendary figure in college football. He truly will be missing. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it had been that long since he was on college football final, like almost a decade, if not over a decade, that he had last been on college football final. It didn't seem that long.
Yeah. No, it feels like yesterday I was watching him and Mark May and all that crew just, talking on ESPN, and it's crazy how fast time flies. But a lot of fun memories as a college football fan. I mean, definitely obviously it's kind of, wasn't even born yet when he was at Notre Dame and when he won the title there. But I just, just hearing about the stories of him as a coach and just all the success he had at a lot of different places, not just Notre Dame, but um, just really cool, and just always even loved listening to interviews with him, just all the insight he'd give to people, and just always seemed like a great guy and just fun to watch on TV. And definitely, I think for anybody that's been a fan of college football for a long time, it's a loss, but you know, it's obviously it's the fact of life. It's going to happen to all of us one day. So
Yeah, I will say you mentioned other schools, and Lou Holtz's time at William and Mary comes to mind for me. Um, Not just because of what he did there. He did a great job at William and Mary. Of course, he took them to a bowl game as a coach in 1970, I believe. They went to the Tangerine Bowl. But there's a quote that sticks out too. I think it was I'm looking it up right now, but I think it was Bobby Bowden who said after William and Mary lost by a lot to West Virginia when Bowden was coaching at West Virginia. I think he told Lou Holtz that he needed to recruit more Williams and less Marys, which is one of the all-time hilarious quotes I've ever heard um, in in college football history. Like I'm verifying to see that's true. I'm hoping I'm not spewing out misinformation, but um, yeah, it looks like it is true that it did happen. Just looking at it, he said, um, trying to find it right now. Yeah, he said that he would have a closer game. Like Bobby Bowden told Lucas he'd have a closer game if he recruited less Williams and more Marys. So, but again, took William and Mary to a bowl game, and I think that they had a losing record in that bowl game. They were the last team to have a losing record entering a bowl game until 2001 when North Texas entered the New Orleans Bowl with a 5-6 record. So that comes to mind. But yeah, like just an absolute legend, and man, just rest in peace. That's what we all should strive for. Just a long life. Just serving our communities. 89 years old. Wow. If I get to live that long.
yeah, no, and I mean the incredible thing too. I mean, I know even the last couple of years he's been doing a podcast. I know, and just for even though he was old, he was still trying to just impact people and just be out there and be productive, and just it's cool to see. Was obviously, when you're as old as he was, I mean, his time was getting closer to the end, but just a lot of great memories, as a fan of the sport. And, definitely, I just look back at all the days when I used, even growing up watching ESPN, just all the times I'd laugh at him and Mark May and just their banter on TV, just a lot of fun for me as a fan. So,
Exactly. But on that note, is there anything else that you'd like to address or mention before we sign off?
no, I think I'm good, man.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Nathan, for just taking time to discuss this in the off season. I know the off season is just slowly trudging along. I mean, slowly rolling along at this point, but we're getting closer. It's less than or about 5 months until week 0, and before we know it, college football will be back. But until next time, everyone, thank you for listening. Lord bless you, Lord keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you, and peace, love, and soul in the burger popper. Bye.